It was one practice. There was no assurance whatsoever from Dan Muse that it'll stick to the game. But man, it really should, and it would be pretty cool. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Penguins versus Capitals tonight at PPG Paints Arena. That's a 7:38 p.m. face-off, and it'll be not nearly as big an event as it could have been had Alexander Ovechkin waited another day to pop his 900th goal. He happened to do that last night in Washington against the Blues. As it is then, going to be looking for other stuff. Notably, how this team adjusts to its first real injury adversity of the season. Tristan Jarry going down for a month. Justin Brazeau's been declared out for a month. Not really sure what's going on with Philip Hollander, but he was only on the ice briefly yesterday. A couple other guys are out. On the positive end of that spectrum, Kevin Hayes looks like he'll be back sooner rather than later. And on the very positive end of that spectrum, Ben Kindel skated on the right wing next to Sidney Crosby and Brian Rust. Now, this is the spot that should have been held by Ricard Raquel, who I didn't mention only because he's been out for a good bit now. Now, the explanation from Muse was that management just wanted to see how this would look in a practice setting. Partly because, the kid's 18, and also partly because he's been exclusively a center in the NHL games. He did do some wing work early in training camp, and he'd done some in juniors as well, but he's a center, and he's obviously been succeeding at the center position. And because development remains not a priority, but the priority for this season, man, the last thing you want to do is mess with everything that this kid's got going on right now. So yeah, it's smart to poke around, feel around, see how it rolls, even if it's just a practice or two. The only certainty in all of this is that this extraordinary young man's going to stay really, really humble through anything. This was his response when asked yesterday in Cranberry about skating alongside Sid and Rust.
Yeah, if I get that opportunity to play with two elite players like that, I'm very honored I'm grateful to have that opportunity. Just going to do whatever I can to help that line be good.
Here's why I like it. First off, I don't know that you'd be wondering a whole lot about this kid's future as a third-line center in the NHL. He's not going to be that. Taking that further, he hasn't exactly been, and this is not a cheap shot or whatever, but on the rink with elite players, except for this past week when he's been assigned to the top power play. He's out there. Doesn't look like he's blown away by anybody or anything, does he? Doesn't look like he's deferring to the stars who are out there, much less, seeking their autograph or something. He's just plain and simple continued doing what he does. Well, okay, so why not in this window here with Raquel out, with Justin Brazeau out on the second line, and you need to make sure that your top six is still a pretty good top six. Find a way to get him into that top six while also recognizing you're not exactly about to bump either of those centers. This checks all of those boxes while also presenting Kindle with the opportunity to let's see how that 5-on-5 looks when you're out there with a couple of guys who can really, really produce. And as for any risk that gets assumed, first off, it seems like a silly word to utilize here, but that's presumably the reason that they went through the whole practice thing and didn't promise anything for tonight. What test has there been that Kindle has failed so far? Or, better put, what test has there been that he hasn't aced? I've seen a little bit of him at wing. It doesn't look much different than what he's doing at center. And that's logical if you consider that he's not exactly a rod hockey player. He's not just going up and down, including when he's at center. He goes where it's smart to go. He's got the speed to get in on the forecheck. He's got the wherewithal, if not necessarily the frame, to be effective along the boards. He makes excellent plays in tight quarters. And look, he's not going to be lacking help. But there's another variable that I'll toss into this, and I think it's also one that could work out for Kindle and the team if they go ahead and try this tonight. They won't talk about this, but I can. The top line has not been good defensively. And we can continue ignoring that as we did most of this past season when everybody, Sid, Rust, Raquel, were all in the minus 20 range, and blame it on bad defense, blame it on bad goaltending, and there's merit to those arguments. But to date, a lot of it really has been on them. Now, I'm not going to suggest that Kindle's in line for the Selke, but he's been responsible. That's why Hollander was there. Yeah, he's got some offensive moxie as well, but Hollander's always had the reputation as a stout two-way type forward. Fine. Switch him. Assuming Hollander's okay. Switch him. Move Hollander down to the bottom six. That actually is where his pedigree and his future are. And bump Kindle up while also making plain to all concerned that, be a little bit better defensively. I hope this happens tonight. I think this would be fun. More important, it might also be effective. These guys could really use a W right about now. You gotta wash that Toronto game out. You gotta wash it all the way out. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Helmsy, and it's in reference to yesterday's episode in which I went at some self-declared scouts and or people who analyze or try to analyze hockey prospects, mostly in advance of the NHL draft, because that's when most of the attention is paid to them. Anyway, Helmsy writes, in fairness to the so-called NHL scouting/draft expert community, did anybody in the Penguins organization actually expect this from Ben Kindle this soon? I doubt it. The hardest thing to scout is hockey IQ, because it really only shines when you're playing with folks who think the game at the same level. It's why Jake Gensel was a third-rounder, but immediately thrived with Sidney Crosby and became a star in spite of a pedestrian physical tool set, and was arguably the best player on the United States team at the Four Nations tournament. Yes, hockey IQ can be hard to scout, specifically for the reason that you're citing. But I think that's more related to the general public or even casual hockey fans than it would be for professional, as in real, scouts. I've tried to, and God knows I'm not one. I'm not pretending to be one either. But I've tried to highlight along the way to this point in the season little things that Kindle has done on the ice that really shouldn't be happening with an 18-year-old. They're not necessarily goals and assists or even scoring chances. They're just things that he thinks and applies reflexively in a way that he's got no business doing at his age. And yeah, those things actually are evident. Are they as evident as they'd be if he's with other players of a high hockey IQ or skill level? No, of course not. This brings up the timeless parallel of the basketball point guard who can make brilliant passes that are completely irrelevant if he's out there on the court with guys who just don't get it. I'm here to tell you that Kindle has created offense for others that's gone wasted. We're all talking about his 5 goals, but he could also have a lot more assists than, well, here, let me look it up. Oh, yeah, 0. he has yet to record an NHL assist, despite everyone everywhere now singing about how great he's been and how smart he's been and how compatible he is and how his passing is. He has 0 assists. I'm here to attest that's not on him. And the only marker that I'd need to measure that is the shock that you likely experienced just now in being told that. Because you've seen the same thing I have, which is he's making passes. He's making passes that plausibly should be primary assists. All right, well, now go ahead and make them to Sidney Crosby and Brian Rust, as opposed to, say, Ville Koivunen, who still doesn't have his first NHL goal. Let's see how it goes. And regarding the guys that I picked on yesterday, none of them by name, I should add, my point really wasn't as much about being right or wrong about Kindle as it was just always in the NHL, accept that there's less information, less data for any of these people who are painting themselves as some sort of elite experts in the field. The field is nowhere near populated enough for that to be the case with anyone. So the people who were talking about Kindle being a reach, I'm talking way more about the people than I am about the player or his prognostications for NHL success. They really shouldn't be getting listened to, at least not yet. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. I'll be at the rink tonight covering the game for DK Pittsburgh Sports. That buys you plenty of time to download the app and check out all of our coverage, morning skates, practices, all of the games everywhere. We travel to every event that involves this franchise. The number of other outlets that do that is exactly 0. We could use your support in that process, and the way to support us is to download the app, the DK Pittsburgh Sports app. It's available Apple, Android. There's a premium level of this app that eliminates all the ads, invites you into our global commenting community, lots else. You can only get that premium level at a massive discount by emailing me directly, dk@dkpittsburghsports.com. I'll get back to you myself and everyone, like the Crosby, Rust, and Kindle line, will live happily ever after. Let's do it again tomorrow, everyone.